Hello, everybody out there in EDU 380 land. I've had some inquiries about your unit of study template with some confusion, some questions, clarifying questions, and so forth. So I thought it would be best if I tried to provide you with a model. Okay, I had asked you last week if you thought you needed a model to let me know. I only heard from one person, but one person is enough. So I've put this together very quickly. So please excuse any typos or any gaffes here, but so I think people are trying to make this too difficult, and it's really not. Okay, so when we look at the digital requirements for this course, I'm asking you to ask your students to create a digital story, participate in a web quest, engage in a collaborative online tool, and complete a formative assessment digitally. 4 things, people. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. The other expectations are for you as a student. So as a student in this class, you're going to create that digital story. You're going to create the web quest. You're going to choose the collaborative tool. You're going to choose the formative assessment. Okay? You're going to create a flipped lesson. But those are your things. So for this unit of study, all right, for this template, it's what students will do. Okay? And backward design is just that. I've had some questions about that too, because I've gotten some emails like, I want them to read this book. Well, great, okay. Or I want them to understand this aspect of history. Great. But start with the standards. Start with what you want them to know and be able to do. And that's down here, folks, okay? When we talked about this, all right? What do you want them to say? Declarative. What do you want them to do? And these are linked with standards. See that I have the standard after here. So here are my standards. And notice I don't have too many, okay? Keep it small. I could have added a lot more, but this is a small project. It's just for you to get a taste of how to do this. So I've established 3 technology standards. These are the ISTE standards for students, not for teachers, okay? I'm holding you accountable to the ISTE teacher standards. You're holding your students accountable to student standards, okay? So there are 3 of them here. Create original works as a mean of personal or group expression, contribute to project teams to produce original works or solve problems, process data, and report results. 3 ISTE standards, okay? 3 technology standards. And if you look at them, they'll line up with those 2 major projects here I'm asking students to do. All right, I'll show you how that in a minute. This is an English unit, so it's part of my discipline. So I've picked 3 writing standards because this is a unit on writing memoir. All right. 1 is to write narratives to develop real or imagined experiences or events using effective techniques, well-chosen details, and well-structured event sequences. Does that sound like a digital story to you? I hope so. And then a sub-performance indicator is to use a variety of techniques to sequence events so that they build on one another to create a coherent whole and build towards a particular tone or outcome. That's part of creating a good digital story. This standard 6, writing 6, is use technology to produce, publish, and update individual or shared writing projects in response to ongoing feedback, including new arguments or information. So, in your lessons, you're going to be asking your students to share the digital stories with each other for peer feedback. They could be sharing their results of their web quest, okay? But they're sharing and getting feedback using technology. This is the collaborative tool, okay? This is using a collaborative tool. And then the last one I chose was about research because I'm going to ask them to do some research. I see the typo here. Oops, sorry about that. So I'm going to ask them to, this is W7, writing 7, conduct short as well as more sustained research projects to answer a question. Solve a problem, narrow or broaden the inquiry, synthesize multiple sources, demonstrating understanding of the subject. This is a web quest. They're going to do a short research project just to answer a question. And I'm going to structure that web quest. And I'll talk to you more about web quest in future modules. I'm not going to talk about it today because it's not assigned. So here are my 6 goals, 3 English and 3 ISTE, which is that's kind of what you want to shoot for, I think. And now, so I'm going to have to now put it into learning goals that students understand. And so I've done that here. So what I want them to be able to do, I want them to create a digital story about their place in the world, okay? And that addresses ISTE standard 1B, writing standard 3 and 3A, 3C, I'm sorry. What did I put A? Sorry, see, I told you I did this very quickly. And then I want them to collaborate with their peers to complete a web quest on another place they might want to live. Okay, so this is all about exploring one's place in the world geographically and emotionally, physically, and there's a lot more to it than just what these standards kind of encompass, but these are the ones that address the outcomes. Okay, we'll do a lot more work in talking about this in lesson plans, but when we come to assessments, this is what we're going to assess. I want them to, and this includes this ISTE standard and these two writing standards. And if you go down and look at them, 6 and 7, use technology and do research. Okay, and the ISTE one is to contribute to team projects. The third thing I want them to be able to do is to produce a report from the web quest. Okay, I want something that says what they learned about that. And that's process data and report results. And it's again about research. So I've linked those learning goals to the standards. What do I want them to say? Well, this is mostly a procedural unit, but I do want them to be able to explain the importance of their place and their identity, which is about W3. When they're writing that narrative, I want them to be able to not just to, write it, but to explain, why this is important. And I want them to distinguish the differences and similarities to their current place and a place they might want to be. And that connects to this web quest about a place that they might want to live. Okay, so learning outcomes hooked up to standards, all right? And I've lost part of that. Ooh, my goodness, where did that go? So this is called What is My Place? And it's for English grades 11 and 12. So I'm expecting some pretty sophisticated digital stories here. These are not going to be Animoto or something that somebody in elementary school would use. This is going to be about pretty involved. They're going to be short digital stories, but they're going to be very complex, and they're going to be very nuanced. Okay, that's what I'm going to be expecting. So I have my unit of study. This is what I want it to be called, to explore place. And so what are my enduring understandings? I want students to know that place can mean many things. Okay, so it can mean a geographical place, it can be whatever, but this is what I kind of want them to take away from that. I want them to know that geography, climate, and natural resources influence the lifestyle of the people who live there. And so my big questions then to guide this unit on memoir, I should say this is a unit on memoir writing. Okay, so is place more than a geographical location? That's the big question. And we'll explore that as they do their research and do their own personal exploration of their place in the world. How does where you live influence how you live? Very important question, okay? So these are the big, broad questions that we'll keep coming back to. We don't necessarily answer these questions, but they shouldn't have an easy answer. They should be exploratory questions. That's what essential questions are. So I've identified the topic of my unit. I've decided for a question, but it doesn't have to be a question. I've noted that it's for English 11-12 and it's memoir writing. I'm not reading anything particularly in this particular short unit. We might have read something prior to that in another unit, maybe read a memoir to understand what memoir is. But for this short unit of study, it's just about the writing and the research. So I have my enduring understandings, my essential questions. I've chosen standards for students to demonstrate mastery in, and I've written those standards out as learning outcomes in declarative and procedural. I've kept in mind my assignment of having students write a digital story and participate in a web quest, and I've also kept in mind the other elements, and I'll show you where those are. So now, how am I going to have students demonstrate their learning? Well, they're going to do a digital story. That's a performance task. They're the standards, the same ones that are linked to the learning outcomes, and they're going to complete a web quest. Here are the standards, same ones that are linked to the learning outcomes. Other evidence, they're going to keep journals. They're going to do online formative assessments, okay? So I don't need to link, a standard to this because it's formative assessment is going to help me to know what they need to know. So I'll choose, a platform to use, maybe Kahoot, maybe Educanon, and again, I'll introduce you to some of those as we go on. I'm going to have them elaborate electronically. Shouldn't be a question mark there, sorry. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll have my CMS be Edmodo, and they can collaborate there on that sort of looks like a home page. Maybe I'll use Google Classroom and they can collaborate there. Maybe I'll create a blog that's connected to my course management site that they can communicate on. Or maybe I'll just create a Google Doc that they can contribute to. I don't know yet. I haven't figured it out, but I know that I'm going to have an electronic collaboration tool. I don't have to have that here now, okay? I can be thinking about that as I move on. And then, there's a question here that asks, how will they have a chance to reflect upon and self-assess their learning? And just like I have all of my students do in my college classes, when I have them do a self-assessment of their learning goals, I'm going to ask the people who do this to do that as well. All right. Now, stage 3 is not something you have to do to this time. Okay. We'll go over this. You're going to be creating a lesson plan in module 2. And I didn't want to overload you with all of this, while I was, you were trying to do the lesson plan, but we'll talk about how to incorporate these concepts into your lesson plans. But let's not worry about that right now. What I want to see from you is stage 1 and stage 2 of this unit plan. So I know and I can see that you've taken into consideration the tasks that I want you to have in your unit plan, and that you have thought through your enduring understandings, essential questions, and your standards. Now, you could have more standards. You could be asking students to do more things in your unit of study than I'm asking here. But I'm asking you please to think small, because it takes a great deal of time to develop unit plans. And if you make this a very long unit plan, then you will be up till midnight every night for the semester trying to complete it, and you don't want to do that. This is supposed to give you, a vehicle for practicing digital technology, but also give you practice in what goes into creating unit plans. In 390, you'll create a much bigger unit plan with more components. But for now, keep it small, folks, okay? So this is a small unit that's probably going to be part of a bigger unit on memoir, where students would be reading and analyzing and all of that. But I don't need to make that big whole unit here for this class. I only need to have a small slice of it. So this unit is on memoir writing, okay, on what is my place. And it will include some research. It'll include a web quest with the research. It'll include creating and producing a digital story. And that's all I'm asking you to do, okay? In addition, I'm going to do a flipped lesson. This is a flipped lesson. What I'm doing right now is a flipped lesson, where students access learning outside the classroom, and then they come to class ready to discuss it or engage in it. So you might think about your flipped lesson, and again, not this week, but I'm just thinking out loud here, because I know I'm going to get questions about what does this flipped lesson look like. Maybe it's that you give them a video on a platform that you've decided to use for the digital storytelling, and you create the video as a step-by-step process for doing this. Okay, and by creating your own digital story, you'll be better equipped to show them how to do that. Okay, and that way they have an archived video that they can go back to look up any questions they might have, and it will help keep you from having to answer the same question 5,000 times. But this week, all I want is stage 1 and stage 2. Keep it as simple and small as you can, while including the requirements and making it a decent, unit. So when I start creating my lesson plans, I can do the digital story first. That's going to be my assessment. I can figure out how I'm going to teach them how to do that. But there's going to be some things that's going to happen before that. I'm going to have to create an introductory lesson, a lesson on, where we talk about the various kinds of plays. It's going to be a lot of front loading and scaffolding before they get to the digital story. But I can still create the lesson and assignment for it. Okay? All right. I hope that's helpful. If you still have questions, please let me know. I'm available. Tomorrow is a big day here at UMA. It's convocation, so I may not be able to answer your emails right away, but I will get to them eventually. So thank you very much, and I'll be talking to you soon.